What's going on, everyone? We hope you had an amazing weekend, and we have some pretty good news for you as the market is set for a much smoother week ahead, as there's no crazy interest rate decision, Jerome Powell press conference on the lineup for this week. So in today's video, we're going to cover where the money's flowing right now and what you want to pay attention to for this week. We have some stocks moving in some pretty exciting ways, and I have a great feeling this week's going to be a really good one. So looking at the market from Friday, about 65% of stocks in the S&P 500 closed down in the red. But besides that, Tom, let's jump right into it.
Yeah, the market was pretty crazy last week. If we actually switch the heat map over to a weekly performance, it was actually pretty good for the week overall. Nvidia was actually down in the red, which kind of surprised me, but Google, Meta, Microsoft, and Apple held the market higher. And, you know, as we all know, the market made new all-time highs last week. On Thursday, it was nice to see the SPY get up to like those 572, 573 resistance. That was a good break of that 565 high that we were waiting for all week long. So let's go. It's going to be a fantastic action-filled week here, Mike. And the first thing, we're going to mention is the most action-filled stock, at least to me, from Friday, which was Intel. Towards the end of the day, there was actually a news article that came out where Qualcomm is looking to possibly buy Intel. So I thought that this was very interesting, Mike. They approached them about a takeover. So what is going on here?
Yeah, so basically Intel's a company that has just been dropping the ball so much over not even just the past couple of years, but honestly like the past 20 years. They were at their peak back in like the 2000s, and ever since that point, they've just, in my opinion, just lost the game, right? The semiconductor slash chip industry has been booming, and that's why we see companies like Nvidia, AMD, and all these other companies just crushing it and reaching, just as blowing past records, while Intel, which once had such a large lead, is just giving it up more and more, what seems like every single day. So a different company, Qualcomm, basically is hinting at taking over Intel, and in my opinion, this is something that Intel might need. So basically, as you could expect, Intel stock blasted off that news, and it's getting a lot of people thinking like, can Intel get acquired down at this level? And it's definitely possible, but I think it's going to be a lot easier said than done, because if Qualcomm actually does make a takeover, or I guess you could say offer for Intel, it will be a long process on the regulatory side.
Yeah, it definitely will, Mike. I mean, as far as the regulatory side is concerned, there's been a lot of acquisitions that have been blocked here. I mean, Broadcom actually made a bid to buy Qualcomm for $100 billion. The Trump administration blocked that deal. We also saw something where Nvidia attempted to purchase ARM, and then they weren't allowed to on antitrust grounds following pressure from Europe and Asia. And I'm actually hearing that, with how much Intel and Qualcomm deal with Asia, apparently it's a big regulatory concern out of China as well. Not just even in the United States where it's going to be hard to get it through, but also in China. They're going to have to get this to be allowed to happen. So I don't know, Mike, very interesting situation. And, you could actually make the argument though, because Intel is falling a lot, right? It's not like they're at the peak of their game anymore. And as far as like processing is concerned, everybody goes to like AMD or Nvidia with the new GPUs coming out. Intel CPUs are just kind of, falling behind in I would say, the tech race here.
Yeah, so I guess looking more at Intel stock, its short-term price action is definitely strengthening, especially relative to the disastrous trend that it was on. But what would you say are some key levels to keep in mind for Intel for the week? And what other analysis do you have with the charts on this one?
Yeah, Intel's had a lot of resistance, right around $22 over the past few weeks. It's really failed to break out there in a big way, and there's actually been a couple times over the past week where Intel tried to get above there, including with that move on Friday, and then it just, couldn't really hold above. It's actually sitting like right at that $22 area in after hours. So if we could see a good extension and just hold of this $22 area, I think that'll be awesome for Intel here. But going back to the daily chart, Mike, there are a couple of supports shorts underneath here if Intel starts falling. First off, I really like the $20 to like $20.50 area. That'll be huge. And there's also a double bottom recently, right around $18.70 to $19. So that's really what I'm watching for. There's a big area of no man's land on the chart right here where Intel had gapped up. I do have pretty big resistance though, right around $25, which is going to be a huge psychological level as well coming up.
Sounds good. So keep a close eye on Intel. Even though this stock doesn't seem as crazy as some other big tech stocks, its options move in a really great way, and the stock is at such a low price right now where it definitely has that explosive potential, even though some people might not think it. But yeah, keep Intel close on watch. But for those of you who watch our videos frequently, you guys know we have not shut up about gold in a long time, and it just keeps on running, which is awesome to see. So as we look at GLD, it is at record highs yet again. And as we've been saying, even before we saw the jumbo rate cut last week, when the Federal Reserve cuts interest rates, it helps gold, especially over recent history. We could see we have a couple lines on the chart. The blue one represents the interest rates or the federal funds rate. When that starts to drop, you could see that the yellow line, or gold prices, has benefited a lot from that. So this happened not only in 2020, but also 2008, and even when the Feds cut rates in like 2001 to 2002. We're starting to see more rate cuts, and gold is already seeing some great bullish action. So keep a close eye on GLD, which is gold, SLV, which is silver, and even GDX, which follows gold miners. But I am loving this price action.
Yeah, we've been looking at these for a while, Mike. There's been a lot of big money plays on them as well, like GDX, which was called out on September 13th. And I know that people were loving that breakout Friday with GDX. If we just continue to see some good price action up above that $40 resistance, we're going to be looking really good in the short term. And if you were late to this big money play, I mean, I still think it's pretty viable, Mike. There's still plenty of time out to November. Of course, I would always say more time. The more time, the better, right? Of course, with gold is with how it moves. I like to swing it more, but I'll tell you what, the intraday price action even lately has been pretty hot, but definitely keep gold on the radar, Mike. And one big thing that is kind of interesting lately is gold is flying to the upside right now with the market, right? And I know a lot of people are like, hey, that might be a little bit weird, but I know that the chances of a recession keep going up too, Mike. So, while the market's been making new highs, so has the recent chances of recession, at least what people are pricing in here.
Exactly. So you could see as the months have gone by, the at least market expected probability of a recession have definitely been increasing. And, that's the main question in a lot of people's minds right now is, are we going to see a recession or not, right? And I know even that definition is subjective, but the key thing is that as the Federal Reserve starts to cut interest rates, if we do head into like a real recession, that will have devastating consequences on the market. While at the same time, if we get a landing as soft as possible, then the market can keep on powering higher. But again, we have to closely monitor the economy here because it's going to be very important over these next couple months, especially as the election passes as well. But another thing that I thought was so interesting is as the market is at all-time highs, as gold is at all-time highs, and as things are, I guess you could say, heating up a little bit, we saw put skew rise to the highest level for the data that we have available. Essentially, what this represents is the price of put options relative to call options. The higher the line on the chart is, the more expensive put options are. You only see this in times when people are actively buying up put options because they want to protect themselves. So essentially what we're seeing right now is put options at their most expensive point relative to calls, and this is not something you necessarily want to see. So this is not the end of the world or anything like that, but it is an important sign that you will want to be aware of as we head into these next couple months, because this does again, it's something that you don't see all the time.
Yeah, you really don't, Mike. And, I was looking at the peak last time from the middle of 2021, and I went back to the SPY, right around June, July of 2021, and I'll tell you what, the market got a little choppy there, but for the most part, continued higher for the next few months there. But guess what? Of course, September of 2021, the market dropped, right? We always talk about September, so I figured I would highlight that really quickly. But, it's not the end of the world to see the put skew getting this high, but it is definitely something to keep in the back of your minds. I think that there's a lot of fear right now, Mike, especially with how the economy is. And, the Federal Reserves are starting to cut interest rates because they're getting worried about the jobs market and et cetera. So there's a lot of stuff pointing to a possible recession coming up. And I think that is something that's just looming in traders' minds. And I also think that also just ties into why gold's moving up as well.
No doubt. And when you talk about like interesting things in the market, we can't not talk about the, I guess you could say, situation with Palantir and the CEO selling a good amount of shares. So tell us the story here.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, Palantir's been doing great in the short term here. You look at the daily chart, it's looking like even on Friday, it almost ran up to another new high here, but the CEO sold off a lot of shares, Mike, over $300 million in stock, and I saw there was a few sells on the 16th and the 17th last week. There was a 4.5 million share sell there at around $36. There was another $4 million sell there at around 36 to 37, and then even another one that was a little smaller on the 17th. So overall, Mike, he's selling a ton of shares right now, and he did exercise some options to sell these shares. I was actually looking at the shares that he still holds, and he sold more shares on the 16th and the 17th than he was even holding before he exercised to do that. So I found that to be interesting, but whenever you have a CEO like this, I would say selling that much shares, that is a bit of a worry, right? It's not like he holds 6 million shares and he was only selling like 1 million of those just to, get some money for the year or something like that, right? I think this was a much bigger sell, but at the end of the day, he exercised the options to do it. So take it how you want, but whenever you see somebody this influential selling, it's definitely a big warning sign, in my opinion.
Yeah, Palantir's a stock I really like for the long term, but in the short term, it is a little bit too overextended to the upside. I would like to see a good pullback before potentially buying this one again, but either way, I'll definitely keep it on the radar, especially considering Alex Karp is selling, I guess you could say, a few shares up here. But looking at the schedule for this week, Tom, we do actually have Jerome Powell back in action, but it's not in the way that most people think.
Yeah, exactly. I know earlier in the video you said there was no crazy events really this week, and there really isn't. On Thursday, Powell does have a speech at 9:20 a.m. Eastern Time. He's giving opening remarks, but get this, guys. It's via a pre-recorded video at the U.S. Treasury Market Conference. So just keep that in mind. It's not anything crazy like with the FOMC or anything like that. So it's just a pre-recorded opening video there. But then on Thursday, Mike, there is some other stuff. There's durable goods orders. We have the GDP growth rate on Thursday as well. And then on Friday, we have PCE data coming out, which will be pretty influential. So, but before the end of the week, there's not really too much on the radar there. And then going into the earnings for the week, we do have KBH on Tuesday and after hours, Micron on Wednesday, and then Costco on Thursday. Personally, Micron and Costco are pretty big and influential in the stock market here, especially with all the chip stock action. MU has been pretty popular in the short term.
Awesome. Yeah, so it'll be an exciting week on that front. But besides that, Tom, let's jump right into some setups and predictions. A stock I'm watching very closely right now is Apple, and it is to the downside. This stock has had a little bit of a choppy past couple of months, and it is in the process of making lower highs. But specifically on Friday, this one had some crazy price action. Right before close, selling pressure just I guess you could say just controlled this stock. You could see that the stock was holding up fine for most of the day, but towards the end of the day, there was a lot of bearish pressure that came into the stock at the time. There wasn't any crazy news to go along with the price action in the moment. A lot of people were saying it had to do with rebalancing and then just, flows changing in the market. But either way, this sort of price action is not a good sign, and when you combine that with the stock making lower highs, highs, I think it makes for a pretty good reward to risk setup to the bearish side. So Apple's definitely on my bearish radar heading into the week.
Yeah, it's almost like a perfect double top up there around 230, 275, really close to 233. I'll definitely be keeping it on the radar for this week as well. With my first play, I'm actually looking to play to the upside with DraftKings here. DraftKings is approaching a pretty big resistance around $40, and you can see how in the short term it's like really coiling here. I love how it held up around that high of day on Friday as well. I'm really just looking for a good break of that high right around $39.50, and then I'll be looking for a push up into that $40 range, and then maybe even a break of 40. But overall, that's what I'm looking at with DraftKings. I like how it held higher, and DraftKings has more of a mind of its own. It's not necessarily going to follow the overall market. It's obviously no Apple or Microsoft.
True. All right. Another stock that's on my watch is Baba. This stock has been uptrending in a pretty consistent way over the past couple of months, and it's starting to gain more and more momentum. On Friday, it did pull back a fair amount, but again, it's still in this broader uptrend, at least over the past couple of months, and we're getting closer and closer to key resistance right around that $90 area. So I would love to see a strong break through that, and if that happens, I think it has the potential to bring more attention and volume into the stock, which can definitely help increase the pace of its uptrend. But either way, Baba is definitely on my bullish radar.
Yeah, $90 is huge there. I'm definitely going to keep that on the watch list as well, Mike. With my next play, I'm looking at Bank of America back to the downside. I didn't really like the price action from Friday, and it's nearing pretty big support around $40.20 to $40. If I see a good break back under that key support, I will be watching this one to the downside. $40 would be a bit safer, but I would say for the scalpers out there, you could probably get in as 40.20 broke as well, but just keep it on the radar. I didn't like the pullback from Friday. Overall, banks were moving pretty good last week, Mike, but they're running up right back into those major resistances again.
No doubt, and we can't even forget that SPY has a good amount of resistance overhead as well. So as we look at SPY, what would you say are the key levels in both directions for the week?
Yeah, I really love the support on SPY from Friday, right around 566. There was a point early in the morning where it fell down really close to 565, which I will be watching as support as well. But 565, 566, major support for Monday. As far as resistance, I really like 569 and 570. It rejected there a lot on Friday. If it's able to break that, then go ahead and watch for some of these next resistances at 571, 572, and 573. I know it seems weird. It's like every whole dollar mark, right? But there is actually pretty consistent bounces at each one of those levels that I did mention there. So that's what I'm watching to the upside, Mike. If we do end up breaking under 565, I'll be watching 563, 561, and then 560 down there to the downside. But I know SPY made new highs last week. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of traders pushing towards those new highs again this week.
All right, sounds great. Well, with that being said, let's jump right into today's momentum plays. And with the first one, we have Teladoc to the downside.
TDOC, pretty bad move on Friday. If they end up breaking under $8.50, then watch them back down. I like Teladoc to the upside, but for a short-term pullback, just don't be surprised. It's been pretty overextended.
All right, with the next one, we have AMD to the upside.
Yeah, AMD looks pretty good here in the short term. It pushed resistance right around 156 on Friday. If it's able to re-break that, I'll be watching for a push towards 159 and 160 overhead. And you can actually see on the Bookmap that like 155 and 156 were pretty decent from Friday. But more importantly, overhead, 159 and 160 are going to be major resistances. So if we do see these chip stocks pull back, that'll be a nice target. But I'm really looking for a clear 157 break.
All right, sounds great. And then with the last one, we have Tesla for both directions.
Yeah, TSLA, again, at major resistance here in the short term, right around 241. If it's able to break that high from Friday, or intraday high from Friday, then go ahead and look for a move to the upside. If it ends up breaking under key support at 235, then watch them back down.
All right, so we have the downside level for a potential move lower. We have the upside level for a potential move higher. That's for Tesla. Don't forget about the upside level with AMD, and then the downside level with Teladoc. Either way, these three stocks are on watch for potential day trades tomorrow, if and only if they break through the levels Tom listed. The stronger and more consistent the price action is, the better the setups become. So keep them on watch for potential setups tomorrow. And besides that, let's jump right into today's $2 million big money trade. And we are looking at ticker symbol XPEV. So it's a very interesting one where this is a Chinese, I guess you could say, auto company. And basically on Friday, a little bit over $2 million was put into the 10 strike call options that expire on April 17th of 2025. So these options definitely have some time to them. They are slightly out of the money, and the stock has been doing okay over the past couple of months. But as we look at Chinese stocks in general, they've definitely been uptrending in the short term. A setup like this one is definitely a high risk, high reward play because stocks like XPEV are definitely more volatile than your average stock, but at the same time, that can work to your benefit when you are trading call options. But basically, looking at XPEV, it has been uptrending in a strong way. There's giant support at the $6.50 level. Resistance is at the $10, $10.50 level, and then like the $11.50 to $12 range. Keep a close eye on this stock going forward, and I'm excited to see how this one does, given it is a $2 million trade.
Yeah, this is pretty crazy, Mike. I really like these resistances here in the short term on XPEV as well. And, you know, XPEV is one of those really weird EV companies, right? I've even seen, Mike, some weird pictures of like XPEV flying cars in the past. I mean, you know, they've been having a lot of crazy concepts and stuff. It could be very interesting if some good news ends up coming out with XPEV. Maybe they start flying up. And I really like, Mike, that these options have enough time, right? XPEV right now is down in this zone. I think that it's very important that you give this play enough time. You know, it might hit resistance, chop around a little bit before getting that bigger breakout back to the upside. So that's really what I'm looking for with XPEV, Mike. But overall, I love that downside support. Just, you know, make sure that you give this play the time that it needs. I'm sure it's going to fluctuate around a little bit too.
All right, sounds good. So keep a close eye on it, but we can't move any further until we give a giant shout out to today's member of the day, Hans in the StockedUp trading floor, who crushed it with Intel on a Friday. He said he turned like $92 into just under $2,500 off of that Intel move. So that was awesome. Huge shout out to Hans, and great job on Friday with this Intel trade. That was awesome because, like we said in the beginning of the video, Tom, you know, even though Intel isn't as crazy as some of these other big tech stocks, when it moves, its options can move quite a bit. So huge shout out to you, Hans, and keep up the great work going forward. If you guys are into short-term trading, definitely check out the first link in the description in the comments down below to get in on the StockedUp trading floor, access all of our custom bots, join our weekly live events, chat with Tom and myself all day long, access the big money plays on the same day the trade's made, and everything else you could possibly need as a short-term trader. It's the place to be, and it's a place to be. I'll leave it at that. But again, it'll be the first link in the description and the comments down below. But besides that, guys, I think we're set for a pretty exciting week. Like I said, it should be much more smoother than last week, given that we don't have any crazy interest rate decisions or anything like that. I'm very excited, and I hope you all are as well. If you guys are new to the channel, consider obliterating the subscribe button to get our videos recommended to you more often. In every single video, we cover the most important news, information, events, earnings, charts, and everything else you need to know in the stock market in usually 20 to 25 minutes or less. Besides that, thank you all so much for watching, and let's crush it in the market this week.